Hey, my name is Nikki and I have issues and they're all completely made up in my noggin. Can you relate? Unless you actually experience anxiety, then it's pretty impossible to understand how sufferers from anxiety actually feel. Today, in my first ever YouTube video, I wanted to talk about anxiety because I myself have anxiety and I have a service animal named Link. That's right, Legend of Zelda, my little hero. So for my first video, I wanted to talk about anxiety to give a little education on it, because every time I tell people like, yeah, I have anxiety, they write it off as like, sort of like a general anxiety that everyone has. But no, I was diagnosed with anxiety, and there's a difference between anxiety disorder and having natural anxiety. And that is why I'm here today to share with you anxiety. But because this is my first video, I decided to introduce myself. Again, my name is Nikki. I have a service dog named Link. He's, sleeping over there right now. I do like writing. I am an aspiring writer. I self-published 2 books that I am currently re-editing because the editor that I had before missed a couple of things and I published it looking all crazy, so that's not nice. I do want to learn how to sing one day. But until that day comes, I'm just gonna have to sound like a dying cat. And actually, the type of anxiety I have is social anxiety, and I'll talk more about that later in the video. So let's get to it. So, talking anxiety. Look, some levels of anxiety are completely normal, as I said before. But anxiety disorder can be more extreme to the point where it can be very difficult to live a normal, stress-free life. Now, there's a lot of people that suffer with anxiety. In fact, it's the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting more than about 18% of the population. And that's pretty high. And the most worrying thing is it does not discriminate. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can get it. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how little money you have. You can get it. The United States has one of the highest percentage of anxiety in the world, and no one really has an answer for it, but they do tend to see a pattern when it comes to the anxiety being from a lack of sleep, social media, or any pre-existing mental illnesses. And if we really think about it, it's a wonder why so many people suffer from anxiety, even if it's like a mild case of it. Like, think about it. Look at the world and how much it's changed from 100 to 50 to even 5 years. Living a modern life can be super stressful. I mean, think about it. Society tells us who we should be, how we should act, like right down to the food we eat. The food we eat, the air we're breathing. Should you have long hair or short hair? What's more attractive? Oh, how do you expect to get a husband? Or even with men, like, how do you expect to get a wife if you're not making, 6 figures in this amount of time? You guys have to go to school and then college, then get a job. But college is not for everyone. They expect it to be A, B, C, D, but it's not always like that. Everybody has a different path they have to take, but everyone feels so. What's that word? They feel pushed to go to college because that's what they think they're supposed to do. But the reality is, you don't need to. And a lot of people go to college just to please their family, or just because society thinks that if you don't have a college degree, then you might be less than. And look at all these post-apocalyptic events that have been happening in the world. Like, what's next? Zombies? And then we're expected to just carry on with life like nothing ever happened, like we didn't just have a pandemic. And a lot of people are so busy working to try and just pay the bills that they don't have time to digest, if you will. They don't have time to meditate or focus on their mental health and their mental well-being. And a lot of people don't even like their jobs. They just work there because you need money to survive. Humans are the only ones that need to work to live. So yeah, anxiety is pretty common. With that said, let's take a look at the actual anxiety disorders that some people are diagnosed with. So now that we know what common anxiety is like, we're going to talk about generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. It's one of the most common disorders, mostly in older adults. I'm not saying that younger people cannot have it. I'm just saying it's more common in older adults, but definitely can affect the younger generations. As you can imagine, with this type of anxiety, as the name suggests, it's general. It's characterized by, the excessive worrying or exaggeration of just about anything. And this constant worry is just like for no obvious reason. Like you can be walking down the street and all of a sudden it hits you like, oh my god, did I forget something? Like, where are my keys? And they're in your hand or whatever, but you can't help yourself. You can't help yourself but to worry about anything, any random thing. It could be some type of like anticipation of a disaster or an irrational worry about like money or health, family, or even your job. Like as I said before, like your keys, like it's just like there's no reason to worry, but you're worrying. And it's difficult for those with GAD to control this feeling. It's really, really hard. And if you have GAD, you know all too well the feeling of restlessness and being on edge. Getting tired easily, and you just become irritable. Like, and sometimes you have trouble sleeping, and it's really difficult concentrating. And if you have GAD, it just makes life more exhausting, and it makes it, more challenging. And life is already exhausting as it is. So to have to deal with this, you guys are really strong. Obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. So this disorder is, I feel like it's controversial for the simple fact is that it's used in a casual way. It's always like a punchline, like, oh, don't blame me, blame my OCD, and it's not funny, but they make it funny, especially in pop culture. You think of Sheldon Cooper, the nerd-like stereotypes of your everyday eccentric weirdos, right? Or, you misinterpret it as an obsession with organization skills, Monica Geller from Friends. Yeah. The truth of the matter is that OCD is much more than that, and it's not funny. It's a chronic, long-lasting condition that gives the sufferer uncontrollable, unwanted, obsessive thoughts that can lead to compulsions or behavior that just repeat over and over and over again. It's not just about being like orderly or having everything around you in symmetrical shapes and like small goes with small, medium, large. It's more than that. It's having these aggressive, horrific thoughts about losing control or even doing serious harm to yourself or other people. Some of the behaviors include excessive cleaning or hand washing, which is where the comedy comes in for these shows. Checking things like locked doors or lights. Hoarding and repeating words in your brain over and over again. OCD is kind of like a CD skipping in your head, and you need to constantly be assured that everything's gonna be okay. Imagine every night having to check your windows and doors multiple times just to make sure that they're locked. This way, you feel secure because you have this fear that someone's gonna come in and attack you in your bed while you're sleeping. And this is why it's not funny, but it's in TV or even, society has a thing where it's like, oops, blame my OCD. And it's not cool. Don't panic. This phrase is used by people to reassure someone, but how is that reassuring? Saying don't panic. And that brings me to our next anxiety disorder, which is panic disorder. The problem is that even though, people have good intentions of being, saying like, oh my god, don't panic, it's not as simple as that. At least not for someone with a panic disorder. And panicking is a natural response to some degree, right? If you're scared of bugs and there's a bug there, you're gonna panic, If you're scared of the water, you're not gonna just go jump in the ocean and start swimming around, right? No, you're gonna panic and be like, I don't wanna get on that boat, what are you, crazy? We all express panic in our life and feeling anxious from time to time. But imagine feeling like that literally all the time. And for no reason. Panic disorder gives you like this uneasy feeling of like anxiety with like a side of frightening panic attacks. And the worst part is they come without warning. You know, your heart starts racing. You just feel it. You feel like you're gonna faint. You get sweaty, nauseous, dizzy. It's just like this feeling of, sorry, there's hair in my mouth. There's like this feeling of dread that just comes over you. And it almost feels like you're gonna die. It like feels like you're dying. And on some occasions, it's kind of like an outer body experience because you don't feel connected to yourself anymore. And I've definitely had that kind of panic before when it came to a job that I didn't like, and I had to show up every single day to that job. And right before I walked through the door, I would just start panicking and crying, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And it's horrible to feel like that. And for me personally, it was because my work environment at that time was toxic, so I decided to leave, and I haven't experienced that again. But this kind of panic disorder doesn't just go away if you change your environment. Like, it really takes time. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Now, PTSD is usually connected to war veterans because, let's face it, war is scary. That has to be the most traumatic experience ever. So thank you for your service if you are a war veteran. So with PTSD, it's a condition that develops after witnessing something or being involved in something that's very traumatic or terrifying for you. So with that being said, it's not only war veterans that can suffer from this. Man, I keep coughing. Those who experience like accidents or personal traumatic events or even develop health issues can get PTSD. You know, the symptoms include like the stereotypical flashbacks, you know, usually common with the war veterans, but it can also happen with people who just have accidents or, you know, as I said before, personal traumatic experiences. So it can be flashbacks of the event, it can be nightmares or uncontrollable thoughts about what happened, and you know, it's just like severe anxiety about everything. Your body just goes into like this anxiety-ridden state, if you will. A lot of us go through like traumatic events in our life, which can be difficult to adjust and cope with life after the fact. But you know, time is a great healer, and with enough self-care and with enough, you know, support, you can overcome it. You know, most people can recover from this. However, if you're dealing with symptoms that get worse or last for months or years, enough to mess up your daily functions in life, you could have PTSD, but you shouldn't self-diagnose yourself. Again, go to a doctor, go to a therapist. And the thing is, it might not even be apparent at first that a person has PTSD. It might develop later on. Sometimes you can get PTSD a month after the traumatic event, or even years after the traumatic event. And the symptoms can vary, like the range of severity, it can vary. And once they develop this PTSD, it can be close to impossible for them to do daily life, whether it's in professional setting or in a personal setting. It can be really hard for them to keep going. So now we're going to talk about phobias. So when it comes to fear itself, it's a normal biological response when it means we can stay safe around potential danger. But sometimes this feeling is totally irrational and can do more harm than good. Enter the phobia. So a phobia is basically an irrational, overwhelming fear of something, like a situation, object, feeling, or animal. So common phobias are dogs, you know, snakes, spiders, bugs, you know, like I have a phobia of roaches. Like, we've all met somebody who has a phobia of something, right? Like if somebody says, I'm really scared of clowns, or I'm really scared of bugs. You know, those are the common ones for me anyway. The issue is nobody really takes it seriously when you say like, oh my god, I'm scared of bugs, you know. What's the first thing people do? Ooh, there's a bug on you, or you know, or oh, you're scared of clowns, let me go get a clown mask and be like, oogie boogie. Lately, the most common phobia is clowns. And is it because people are really scared of clowns, or is it just the fact that psychologically, we're all prone to being unsettled by clowns. They're wearing makeup, they're hiding their identity of who they really are. They're mischievous, you don't know if they're gonna squirt water at you through a flower or not. You don't know if they're gonna throw a pie at your face. Now, there is a term for the fear of clowns, but I suck at pronunciation, so you'll just have to see it on the screen here. It's not just a psychological reason why a lot of us fear clowns, but it's certainly in the Western world. Many of us grew up, with typical horror shows with clowns, Stephen King's It. And the crazy part is that these movies causing people to be scared of clowns put actual real clowns out of business, which is unfortunate. No idea why I giggled at that. But, real clowns are losing business. Clowns are supposed to be happy and fun and, oh my gosh, here, have a balloon. But because of the horror genre, and the way that they make clowns look, it makes people not want to hire them for their kids' birthday parties. And the World's Clown Association, which is a real thing, look it up, okay, said that, because of horror films like It, I'm not trying to pick on It, I actually really like that movie, but horror films like, It makes people more afraid of clowns, and clowns don't get hired. And it's just really sad because now, these movies are putting these clowns out of business. Phobias come in many forms. Like, a common one is agoraphobia or claustrophobia. Pretty sure I said that wrong. My mom chuckled at me if you didn't hear her. Agoraphobia is the fear of open spaces, and claustrophobia is the fear of being in small, teeny, tiny spaces. And there are many types of phobias out there. There's even a phobia of fear of falling asleep. That one's not as common as claustrophobia or, being afraid of clowns. But it's a fear. There's even people that are scared of chins, just like there's people that are afraid of feet. That they literally will scream if they see your toes. But according to studies, just 12.5% of United States adults experience specific phobias at some point in their lives. Then we have social phobia, which is what I have. And it's also one of the most common types. And it's typically this phobia, usually it begins when you're a teenager. I was way younger. When you're a teenager, you're socially awkward, you're moody, you're just trying to find yourself, and are you part of the in crowd? What is it? The popular group or the unpopular group? Are you with the weirdos? Are you with the goths? Or, who are you with in this scenario, right? So that's usually where social phobia begins, which is understandable. And many of us can identify with that, like in school, do you want to be cool or do you want to be uncool? Like, if you wear pink, you're in. If you wear yellow, you're out. No offense to pink and yellow, like I'm just using examples here. And you may have heard of it referred to as social anxiety disorder. And that's how it's more commonly known. This particular disorder is characterized with the overwhelming anxiety and self-consciousness in everyday interactions, or like any type of social interaction, And it can be more prevalent when you're around people and you're supposed to be eating and drinking and having a good time. Maybe you don't want to chew too loud. Maybe when you're drinking your drink, you don't want to make a gulping noise or something. You get anxious about that stuff. And speaking in groups or having to stand up in front of the class, or if the teacher calls on you without you having your hand raised, and now all of a sudden you have to answer this question, you can get anxiety from that as well. And in more severe cases, you can just get set off just by being in front of people, like in a crowd. And that's why I hate New York. No offense if you're from New York. Like, I've been to the city many times, and oh my god, let me tell you, I freaking hated it in December. I was done. I told my mom to take me home. I was like, no, I hate New York. I hate it here. Like, I don't want to be here. However, social anxiety can improve as you get older. For me personally, in case you're wondering why I was in New York in December, I tried to do acting school in New York to try to break myself out of it and try to make myself like more talkative. When I was in kindergarten, when I started school, I didn't talk to anybody, not even the teacher. I wouldn't even tell them if I had to use the bathroom. Like, I would literally rather pee myself than raise my hand and ask to go to the bathroom. It was that bad. And my mom had to like tell me, like, just talk to the teacher, just raise your hand, just do this. And I'd be like, no, nope, no thank you. And then as I got older, of course, I started talking to the teachers more because you don't want to be like 10 years old pee-peeing on yourself, right? So throughout my school years, up until I graduated high school, I was known as the quiet girl, but I wasn't as quiet as I was when I was in kindergarten. But once I graduated, let me tell you, I best believe I never went back. I was so happy when that pandemic hit, only because our high school reunion got canceled. And I don't think I would have went even if it wasn't canceled, because I don't want to be around anybody like that. So sometimes I'm able to like go out into a crowd and like talk to people and be like, oh my god, hi, how are you, like that. And then but when I come home, I'm so drained that I don't want to talk to anybody for weeks. And it's funny because I'm a customer service agent from home, and I have to talk to people on the phone. I rather chat, do the chat box and the email thing. And I've been trying so hard to get out of customer service because I don't want to interact, especially if the customer is irate. But I guess I'm just so good at my job that everybody keeps saying, hey, do you want to be a customer service manager? Hey, can we hire you for customer service here, there, everywhere? But it's like, oh, come on, please give me something else. Let me do data entry or something for you. So, moving on. I just want to set this reminder, anxiety is not a weakness. It's not a weakness. You are not your disorder, right? I also have asthma. My asthma doesn't control me. I control it, right? Living with anxiety, but turning up and doing things anyway takes a lot of strength. And most people won't ever know that. Like, I chose to go to acting school to try and, fix my anxiety, try to figure out how I can open myself up more when it comes to being social. I did that, and it was really hard for me, but at the end of the day, I enjoyed it. I pushed myself. Do you want somebody else to push you, or do you want to push you? Because let me tell you, it's more satisfaction when you do it yourself versus somebody making you. So if you're one of the people that are struggling with anxiety, whether it's one of the ones that I mentioned in this video or a different kind, just know you are not weak. You can fight this. We got this. We're gonna thrive. You just have to go easy on yourself. Manage it day by day, little tasks at a time. And try and educate people on the type of anxiety that you have. Try to explain to them. And guess what? If they choose not to listen, or if they choose to be like, everybody has that, or whatever, then they don't need to be around you. Go find somebody who understands what you're going through. Or go find somebody who is willing to listen, who is willing to be patient and be there for you. Remember, you have control over your life. No one else. Not anxiety. Definitely not anxiety. But do things that make you happy and you can overcome. And just, again, I can't stress enough, go easy on yourself. Whatever you decide to do today versus tomorrow, at least you did it. You survived. You survived another day. And with that, I want to thank you for tuning into my video. And if you made it this far, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope you consider subscribing, maybe like the video, leave a little comment, leave me suggestions if I explained something in a weird way, or if I explained it in a way that you feel is wrong. You feel free to correct me in the comments. I'm still learning about all the different types of anxieties and things like that. But thank you for listening, and I hope you can join me again when my next video comes up. Bye!